Action.
There's just really chaos on the water at this point.
Danger.
And she's your captain, and she's fearless, and you gotta be fearless too.
Adventure.
Next thing I know, my sailor is diving into the ring, and the crowd is getting louder.
You're listening to Sea Story.
Episode 13, Donkey in the Desert.
Hello, my name is Senior Chief Gilbert Dominguez. I'm originally from Idaho Falls, Idaho, and this is my sea story. When I was with the Marine Corps, my job or rating in the Navy is a religious program specialist is my rating, so the Marines call it a chaplain's assistant. And my chaplain and I were assigned to Combat Service Support Battalion 18, and we were in Iraq, March through July 2001. And we were in country, and it was Holy Week, the month of Easter. Being a part of a service support battalion with a chaplain, we supported everyone, which included Air Force units as well as Army units, and of course, Marine Corps units. I was in our command tent with my chaplain, and a knock on our door came, and it was a first sergeant, Army first sergeant. He seemed different than Marines in the sense that he was strictly business, and he was there on behalf of his commanding officer to arrange religious services for Holy Week. My chaplain had already committed to Easter Sunday services, but had offered to the first sergeant, hey, well, we'd be willing to come out there to where you're at for Palm Sunday service. So we set it up. The first sergeant was there, and he asked me, do you know how to get out there? And I said, well, give me the coordinates, we'll figure it out. He assured me, you don't need coordinates. You just look to the horizon, and you'll see our Patriot missile battery. He was in charge of a Patriot missile battery. And you'll see our tracks in the sand. And I said, okay, First Sergeant, that sounds good, So we set up a time that Palm Sunday morning that we'd be out there at about 8 o'clock in the morning. So that meant we'd had to leave a little early, chaplain and I. So we got in the Hummer, took off that way, and just like First Sergeant said, I saw this tremendous footprint of these vehicles leaving these tracks in the sand. And looked to the horizon, and there was a Patriot missile battery standing straight up, And I said, yeah, First Sergeant was right, just follow those tracks. We got out there after a while, and and they're in the middle of nowhere. And these soldiers were living so much differently than we were as far as Marines and sailors assigned to a support battalion, because we had showers, we had a galley tent, we had the internet. We were set up pretty nice. These soldiers, on the other hand, were really dug in. They were unto themselves, of course, out there, and their job was to be able to shoot down Scud missiles as they flew over. If they could, they would intercept them. That was their whole mission, so that meant they had to be the furthest out, strategically placed, so they were all out there. When we got out there that morning, we realized that these soldiers were living really, really in tough conditions, sleeping on the ground. We were sleeping on cots in tents, and they really had it rough out there. And so the leadership there, the Army leadership, thought that at least we can try to set up some services, to boost the morale of the soldiers out there. And so that's why we were there. And so we went out there, found them, and living their conditions, and they were happy to see us because, the chaplain wears a cross on his collar, and I'm there with them as a chaplain's assistant, and we find a little area to have a Palm Sunday service. And it was essentially just this little place where we were kind of sheltered from the wind that day, and the leadership went around and announced to the soldiers that we were there to have church service, which was cool. It was Palm Sunday, like I said, and chaplain started going through his sermon and just a normal Protestant service, an opening prayer, and he read from the gospel, and of course it was Palm Sunday, so chaplain preached about the belief that Christ rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and the people saw that he was the king and recognized him as such. They laid palms on the ground, and he rode in a donkey. So we're sitting there in the middle of nowhere with his Patriot missile battery on Palm Sunday, having service, and no sooner had the chaplain had just given his sermon about Christ riding into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. There came a donkey walking through the middle of the camp, out of nowhere. And remember, we were just off in this little corner, and it's this random donkey that just came through the camp, walking through the camp. And I remember, even still today, I tell the story, I get the chills talking about it. All of us kind of looked at each other and were just really stunned. Like, that just happened. Those of us who have a Christian belief, really felt like the Spirit was there with us that day. And to see those soldiers, those smiles on their faces, for them to have that kind of feeling of really feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit. For them, it was amazing. I asked first, what's up with the donkey? He goes, we don't know. We've never seen him before. But I guess he was just wandering around the desert, and that's something that I'll never forget. That morning, that Palm Sunday, there with those soldiers there in the middle of nowhere, and feeling like Chaplain and I maybe made a difference for them, even just for that day, kind of lifted their spirits, because they truly were out there paying the price, being on the front line there and doing what they do. It was a privilege for us to be out there with them.
Sea Story is brought to you by America's Navy. Learn more at Navy.com.